Hi, everyone. Welcome to Grow Big TV. Well, you see Tammy here. Tammy from Rebel Canners is here. Corky is sick. So Tammy goes, you know what? Well, I asked Tammy, hey, would you want to come on today? And she goes, yes.
I'd love to.
She would love to. And she knows a little bit about Bevin. Well, a lot more than I do because, she's his Facebook friend and they met and she bought his products and a book. And so what better person to have during an interview? So thank you, Tammy, so much for coming on. So when people, I'm going to show you guys the 6 inches of soil film, the 2-minute preview. And we're going to start our interview when people are starting to roll on in. So welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. So 6 inches of soil. Here it is.
6 inches of soil feeds 8 billion people.
We already grow enough of all the human essential nutrients to feed everyone who's alive.
Farming is the single biggest cause of biodiversity collapse, the second biggest cause of climate change.
Soil is the most valuable resource on the planet, and we're degrading it without even realizing.
We have come to believe that money is more important than soil. That idea has to change.
Regenerative agriculture is farming that we're producing food, but also farming in harmony with nature.
You're working with nature, not against it.
The more people see it, the more that they realise that it works.
Having a regenerative agroecological system, that is surely the solution.
Soils are absolutely phenomenal in the amount of carbon they can store.
What we absolutely need now is urgent action from the government.
Until you deal with 9 retailers who have 94.5% of food sales in Britain, you're not going to have a level playing field.
Consumers have a choice. They can decide to buy cheap meat from industrial farms, or they can find farmers that really value animal welfare and the environment that we're farming in.
Dad started regen farming for the future generations to come, and that was the most selfless act he could have done.
The people who are doing this are making big sacrifices.
I think the potential is absolutely huge here.
These farms really can change the world.
It's all about the soil, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So 6 inches of soil. That's going to be an awesome film. You got to go check that out. And also you got to check out Common Ground that just came out. So our guest today is Bevin Cohen. Bevin Cohen is award-winning author, herbalist, owner of... Sorry, guys. I thought I shut that off.
It was me.
We got it.
He has the small house.
Hold on, guys. There we go. Sorry about that. So, Bevin Cohen is an award-winning author, herbalist, owner of Small House Farm. He resides and works in Small House Farm in Sanford, Michigan, along with his wife, Heather, and his 2 sons, Elijah and Anakin. Well, what else do we know about Bevin Cohen? He's an author and herbalist, like we just said. He has authored and edited more than 10 books. So he's closer to 14, I think, maybe 15. And some of the titles of his books is Saving Our Seeds and Artisan Herbalist. And he has a new one coming out in 15 days called It's with Food Preservation. So I can't wait to talk to him about that. His work spans topics related to seeds, herbs, and locally grown foods. He also has a podcast called Seeds and Weeds. And some of the interviews he had on that podcast are absolutely amazing. So I hope you guys could check that out. With the community initiatives, Ben, he founded the Michigan Seed Library, which is huge and it's growing. I mean, it's so awesome. It's a community shared saying initiative that collaborates with various communities to establish seed library programs across Michigan and beyond. He also does workshops and lectures. Bevin offers workshops and lectures across the country, emphasizing the benefits of living close to the land through seeds, herbs, and locally grown food. So let's welcome in Bevin Cohen. Welcome.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And thank you. It's the Marshmallow Man for becoming a member. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone being here today. So, everybody has a story where we start. For example, when I started my journey with gardening and seed saving, all started with my neighbor. We lived next to a farm. But, there's a lot more to that. So I started saving seeds. My grandmother taught me how to save seeds. So it started with marigolds. All right. My next door neighbor taught me about cow manure and using fertilizer and things like that, and how to grow your own food. Old school, and that's the way I should have kept on growing instead of listening to everybody else with fertilizer. Right? I mean, who knew microbes were how you're supposed to grow food is with healthy microbes in the ground? I mean, instead of like microgrow, fertilizer, and all that kind of stuff. So, what is your story? When did you start? How did you get started to either garden or get into herbs, or like tell us your story, your background when you started when you were young?
Well, I've always been fascinated with plants. When I was a young kid, I lived with my grandmother. I was raised by my grandmother, and we lived in a small apartment. And we were kind of on the edge of town, so we were butted up against to a large expanse of woods, a lot of forest. And I would spend most of my days, playing in the woods, running around in the trails and climbing trees and doing all the things that kids do in the woods, and picking berries and what have you. And, I was sitting in the woods one day and eating wintergreen berries is what it was. And I was thinking, gosh, if there's so many cool plants that do so many cool things right here just in this little patch of woods that I live in, how many cool plants are there in the whole wide world, right? And that was just a little kid thinking that. I thought, gosh, there's so many cool plants out there. I would love to know more about all of them. And that was sort of how I suppose it started. And it's really become, an obsession would almost be like a mild way to put it. I'm very interested in the many ways that people interact with plants, whether it be for food or for medicine or for fiber or dye, whatever it might be. There are so many ways that we can utilize all of these wonderful treasures. And so even as a young boy, I was fascinated by it. And it was the first steps, I suppose, that I took on what's become a lifelong journey of exploring the wonders of the plant world, I guess.
Now, when you were out in the woods, would you grab something and say, like, what is this? Like, you're foraging. Would you forage and bring stuff home? Would you just wonder what's out in the woods?
Well, a little bit of both, I would at first what is this that I'm finding out here? And I would pick it and fill my pockets with it and bring it home and, play with all the parts of the plants and look at them on the table and stuff. And, that sort of thing. My grandma took me to the library a lot. So she instilled in me when I was very young the importance of reading books. I read a lot of books. I was an avid reader, storybooks as well as nonfiction books. So I started going to the library, and there was plenty of resources where I could bring some books home. And then when I bring these plants in out of the woods, I could try to figure out if I could, find out what they are or whatever, and it was just a fun adventure. I didn't think of it anything more as like, I guess, almost like detective work, right? Can I figure out what these plants are? Not even at that point, what do you do with them? But can I just figure out what it is? So can I learn how to identify these plants? And then some of those books would have some uses or whether they're edible or not. And, it's just so interesting to think about. Basically every plant that we encounter serves some sort of purpose, whether it's a purpose that we can interact with directly as people, but in the greater ecosystem of the world, of course, every plant serves a purpose. Every plant has a role to play. And it's just so much fun to just learn about all those things. I'm much older than I was back then, and I'm still learning stuff. There's still new things every day that I learn about plants. It's absolutely amazing. Amazing. It's a lifetime of learning, when you get into plants, for sure.
What's good with what's going on now is we're all teaching. There's other avenues for kids to learn that we're still learning, but the kids are getting more educated at a younger age about everything.
Very much so. So even just for my personal example, I grew like radishes and things on a little in a flower pot on my grandma's balcony because we had an apartment. We didn't have a garden or anything like that. So my growing experience as a young child was very limited. But my kids, on the other hand, they are out here pulling weeds and digging potatoes and doing all the things I never had a chance to do at their age. So even just in my little microcosm of the world, you're absolutely right. Kids have a lot more available to them than we probably did, right? But then if you go back a few generations behind me, that was just the way of life for so many people, So it's kind of funny to see it come full circle like that.
It just seems like it's missing 40 years of work somewhere, But
yeah, about 40, 50 years of something there's like a little blip there, I guess you could call it, right?
Well, it's going. What can we do easier and faster and not, hey, just put something out there. Hopefully it grows. We're good. And we'll put some more chemicals to it. Oh, geez. That's great. Now, was your grandmother, you started doing the radishes. Did your grandmother guide you in a way?
No. Not so much. She didn't really grow a lot of stuff. She was in the kitchen. She instilled in me my love of delicious food, right? Even as a young boy, we would can tomatoes and that sort of thing. And my grandma, we didn't have a garden, obviously, but my grandma was very particular about where she got her tomatoes from. We'd go to the next town over and we would pick up our tomatoes from a very specific farmer every year. So she even understood the importance of that local food. These tomatoes are far superior to anything at the grocery, right? And she would go pick up these tomatoes. We'd can them. So she was on that side of the beautiful part of plants, which is great to have that seed planted inside me as well. I love cooking food. I love eating food. I love sharing that with my kids. I love getting my food or my kids cooking food. That's a big part of what we do here at Small House, really, and I can thank my grandma for that.
I love that everything seems very family oriented. I love that. Just recapping, going over stuff and, getting a little history. And I'm like, wow, this is so family. This is how it's supposed to be. This is cool, And I like how you started your business because you wanted a garden. For the first part you wanted, what's the garden? You wanted a garden, And then it turned into you tell us the story. How did you start your own business?
Well, so you're right about the garden. When we first bought this place, Small House Farm, one of the first things I did was start to build raised beds. Like within the first weeks of owning the house, we started putting the gardens in right off the top because that was definitely something that we knew that we wanted to do. But we didn't really have much of a plan. Really, when we came out here, we knew we wanted to do something different than what we were doing, right? What we were doing with our lives wasn't quite checking all the boxes for us. We weren't completely fulfilled with it. So we thought, oh gosh, let's do something a little bit different. So we came out here really kind of allowing the universe to unfold for us, to guide us where we needed to go in a way, right? Kind of, as some people might call that, a leap of faith, I guess, right? So we're kind of like, what are we going to do here? And I was reading a magazine, Organic Gardening Magazine or something to that effect. And there was a story in there about a couple who had quit their corporate jobs and moved to the country, and they had purchased an old mill, and they were refurbishing this mill, and they were working with these farmers to get this organic grain, and they were going to start this business grinding their own grain. And I thought, wow, that's way cool. That sounds like a super fun idea. Unfortunately, there was no mills for sale anywhere near me, and I really didn't have the funds to purchase one anyways if there was. So I was like, this is kind of a neat idea. And in the back of that magazine, there was an advertisement for an oil press. And I thought, well, I'd never even thought of it, right? Like, where does oil come from? It's one of those things that if once we get involved in the production of things, then we learn what it entails. But I mean, there's a whole aisle of oils at the grocery store. And until that moment in my life, I'd never even thought about where they come from. And I thought, wow, I should maybe get this oil press. And maybe this is the thing for us. Maybe I should learn how to press my own oil. And my wife, Heather, I always say she's the most patient woman in the whole world because, she's got to put up with me and my ideas every single day. And she says, I guess if this is what you want to do, let's go ahead and give it a try. And I guess you could say the rest is history, right? We got this oil press, and a long story short, that was pushing almost 14 years ago. And it's the cornerstone of everything that we do at Small House Farm is that oil press. We press our own seed and nut oils. We used to sell them wholesale. through all these co-ops. It was a very big business for a while that I thankfully had an opportunity to scale back. That's a whole story there, I suppose. But it's also one of the main ingredients, these cold press oils, in all of the herbal products that we offer at Small House Farm. So it's really still, to this day, it's the foundation of everything that we do. Just on that whim in the back of that magazine, and just sometimes you just got to get out of your own way and let the world unfurl in front of you, right? And so we got lucky, really, for sure.
So Jay Dixon has a question. Did you go through any formal education, botany, less formal learning, or you most likely are mostly self-taught?
I am very self-taught. A lot of books. I read a lot of books. I spend a lot of time with that. I've also studied with others that are far wiser than me. I've spent a lot of time working on other people's farms, learning how that sort of things work. I've worked on some commercial tomato farms. I worked for a commercial mushroom cultivator. I did that for a year. That was a lot of fun. I've learned from other herbalists. I've sat down with many old ladies in Appalachia to learn from them. I've been lucky to glean knowledge from many people far wiser and more experienced than I am, for sure.
I mean, when you were foraging, you seen mushrooms. Now, I never had the guts to grab a mushroom because I didn't know what I was actually grabbing if I was in the woods foraging. When did you finally say, hey, you know what, let me bring this back and see how did you find out what it was? How old were you?
Oh my gosh. I probably brought my first mushroom home when I was like 7, 8, something like that. And my grandma immediately told me, do not do that. You know what I mean? Don't be picking mushrooms. Don't be eating mushrooms. That's not something that you should do. And so I listened to my grandma because, she knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I was, you could say, afraid of mushrooms. I respected the mushrooms and really stayed clear of them until I could find somebody that knew more about them to teach me about it. A lot of the mushrooms that we deal with here at Small House Farm, we grow shiitake mushrooms. So most of my mushroom work involves cultivated mushrooms that we grow on oak logs right here on the edge of our forest. So I can identify them. I know them. I'm growing them. I have that relationship with them. And I think that's important, to have that relationship with whatever plants, so their food, medicine, whatever it might be. That relationship is key to safe and happy experiences.
I love that. I still don't have the guts to go grab a mushroom in the woods and forage. I got in my father had it. Do not pick that. You're going to be poisoned,
Right. Well, the key, Joe, is to connect with some folks in your community, find some other mushroom foragers and kind of just follow them around, and maybe they'll share some of their wealth with you. Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I just go stroll with somebody that knows what they're looking at, go strolling through the woods and, hey, what's this?
Right. My wife's uncle, he's an avid morel mushroom hunter, and I love to follow him around. And he's always giving me tips and tricks on where you can find them and this sort of thing. But I find that I'm the most successful when I just follow right behind him. And then we go to his place and eat his mushrooms with him, and that works out pretty good.
It is the season.
It is the season. You're right. It's the season. This is my favorite time of the year, not just for the morel mushrooms, but everything's just popping up to life, and it's so exciting. It's getting, we're starting to get that excitement. Everything's getting really busy. It's, the calm before the storm, so to speak. It's like electric.
My son came in this morning. He goes, Mom, you're not going to believe it. It's so different out there. And I'm like, different out there? What? I was just outside yesterday. He goes, no, it's green. All the leaves opened up. And overnight here in this area in Michigan, all of our leaves opened up on the maple trees. And so yesterday they were buds, and today we have leaves. So it is definitely time to go look for those morel mushrooms.
We had the same thing happen here overnight. We got some good rain overnight. Yep. Woke up the next day and everything was green all of a sudden. It's awesome. It's awesome.
It is the greatest feeling. It's like, it's spring now. It's spring. Yes.
We made it. Go. Hooray.
71 tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah. The weather. It's 82 degrees to Thursday, and mid 50s, low to mid 50s during the whole weekend. It's like, oh, come on, stop teasing us.
Yeah, it's the weather's all over the place. That's part of the excitement. Even nature's so excited right now that she doesn't even know what she's doing. She's all over the place.
We had a question before. Oh, 1 second, I missed it. So what inspired you to start the Seeds and Weeds podcast?
Well, a couple of things. One, I don't sit still very well. I like to keep busy. That's important to me. It's almost an issue that I have is my inability to sit still. I want to just take on things. Got to keep busy. And every winter, I kind of start a new project. I get bored. What am I doing in the winter time? We're cleaning seeds. I'm splitting wood, whatever. Writing books a lot. And, a couple years ago, we started the YouTube channel, which has been pretty successful. It's kind of a fun thing to do. We started this YouTube channel. And then I drive a lot, Joe. I'm on the road in the spring, in the fall. I'm visiting a lot of places. I travel a lot for educational programming for folks. And so I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I thought, this seems like a fun thing to do. Maybe I should start a podcast, right? And then one winter I just did. And I really wish that I would have done it sooner. I didn't realize how fun it was going to be. It's such a pleasure to do. They're very short. I also have a short attention span. So, the episodes are only about 20 minutes or so. And most of it's interviews with folks, farmers and gardeners and foragers and chefs and groovy plant people is what I call them. Folks that in some way their life intersects with plants, and, whether it's growing them or eating them. And I'm like, well, let's sit down and talk about plants. And they're fun conversations. I learn so much stuff every time. It's just been really such a pleasure. And I thought Seeds and Weeds seemed like a good name for it because that seems to be my every day. I'm up to my elbows in seeds and weeds. So that's kind of my life,
And what?
Well,
how do you choose? Get Tammy.
Well, you are the seed guy around here to me because of starting the seed exchange. And you do that every year, and it's one of the biggest ones, and definitely the biggest one in Michigan.
Oh, yeah, it has grown quite a bit. When we started it 10 years ago, we started it really just as a way for me to do something with all the seeds that I had. I had a lot of seeds, and I needed to share them with people. So we put together this little seed swap. And, that first year that we did it, maybe like 100 folks came to it, and that was pretty cool. And we had a lot of fun, and I got to meet folks, people in my own community that have the same seed saving issues that I have. And I thought kind of maybe I was just alone in this. And then all these people come out of the woodwork. I was like, whoa, other seed nerds. And so we kind of developed this little bit of a community. And over the years, we kept doing it. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. We've moved venues twice now to reach, to have enough space for all these people because we keep reaching capacity. This last seed swap that we do it the last weekend in February, we had over 2,000 people come to it.
It's incredible.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous. It's one of the largest seed swaps I've ever been to. I also organize the seed swap that takes place every year at the National Heirloom Expo in California. And that's the only other swap I've been to bigger than the one that we put on. And I've been to seed swaps all over the country. It's amazing to see how many people show up. We have all these vendors and seed swappers, and we have educational programming and food vendors. It's quite an elaborate event. And it's just cool to see all these people. Some folks have been coming every year ever since, you know what I mean? So we're all like friends now. You've only missed one, right? People keep coming.
We had a blizzard. It wasn't my fault. It was a blizzard. It was icy roads. It was only one.
It was a blizzard that one year. We actually lost power. We had to hook up a generator. It was a whole thing. And we still probably had like 800 people that were there in a blizzard. Yeah. People come from all around. They come from other states. It's quite an awesome thing to see. And really, we don't really advertise it or anything. It's all just word of mouth.
And what amazes me is the biodiversity in the seeds. Not just the ones that are swapped, which is there's three this year. There was 3 great big long tables full of seeds that were being swapped. So there was a table of like herbs and a table of flowers and a table of vegetables, and people there talking about the seeds that they brought and kind of tailoring, not just throwing them on the table and walking away as in past years, but sitting there passing them out and talking and sharing their stories with people. But I think the guy that you invited, the corn guy, and he has all of these different Indian corns specific to each Native American tribe all over the United States. And I have a tie to a very obscure the Cocalico. It's a form of the Delaware Indians in my family history, and he even had a corn that was very close to the geographical area of my people, which was just amazing to me.
That's awesome.
Obscure, like nobody's ever heard of the Cocalico Indian Band, and yet here he is. He's got corn, and it's just like one county over from what was grown by the people that my ancestors lived with. So it's just, you have some real, it's not just a seed swap or just information. There's so much there that is amazing to me. I love it. I love going every year.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. My wife and I are the sole organizers of the entire event, and it's a huge production to put on. So I love to hear stories like that we're really making real personal connections with folks, because that's really what it's about. Again, those relationships. So I love to hear that. That's really awesome. So thank you for sharing that.
So any tips for the seed swap? So if somebody wanted to organize their own seed swap in their state or county, or give us some tips.
Well, some of the things you're going to want to figure out, I suppose, right off the top is the venue for it, where you're going to want to host it. And it could be as simple or as elaborate as you want it to be. I mean, I've been to seed swaps that are just hosted like in somebody's backyard, and those have been fantastic. We do ours now at this point in the local high school. We take over the whole building. We use the auditoriums and such due to the scale of the event. But finding a nice venue is really nice. If you've got a seed community in your organization, a seed library at your library is a great place to start, a master gardeners organization, something like that, making some connections within your community to other like-minded folks and sharing this idea. Because if you can get some more people on board to help coordinate everything, that's very, very helpful. And then you just want to see how big it's going to be, you should, if you've got some seed swapping friends, invite them to it. If you want to have some workshops, you certainly can, but you don't have to do that. You can just have people coming together. The seed tables that she was talking about, we spend a good chunk of the year gathering donations from seed companies and such. And so we set up the whole free seed distribution area for folks to come and get seeds. And then in addition to that, we have dozens of vendors that come and set up with seeds from their gardens. So there's a lot of different ways that the seeds are being exchanged, but it never has to be that elaborate. If you've got a few friends that like to grow some stuff, get together, swap some seeds, put it on your Facebook. That's how, when we did our first one, I posted it on my personal Facebook page, and 100 people I didn't know showed up to it. And it's just snowballed from there, from word of mouth. So find a venue, find a place to hang out, bring your garden friends, swap some seeds. It's that simple. People have been swapping seeds with each other for 10,000 years, It's something that we could put together a very simple yet effective seed swap very easily with not a lot of resources to get started.
Now, when you divide them up, do you put it in like seed packets from Baker's Creek, for example? You put them in a tomato section, whatever seed, my gardener, you divide them up by variety, like tomatoes, peppers, hot peppers, and go on and on and on like that. So once you get them in the mail, you start to divide them up at that point.
Well, yes and no. Ultimately, that's the goal, but it really doesn't ever happen until the morning of the event or the night before, right? So we get all of the donations and they kind of accumulate. We've got a room in the house where we keep all of our canned foods and seeds and squashes and things like that. And these boxes just kind of accumulate in there until right before the swap. And then we sort them out. This last seed swap, we had a lot of volunteers come and help, which was really, really awesome. And they helped sort out the seeds that morning. And but we divide them. So we have a tomato section and a pepper section and brassicas and greens and herbs and flowers and native plants and that sort of thing. And then we just kind of divvy the packets out into the right piles. And then we provide all of the little envelopes and markers and things so folks can then just take some seeds. We put a lot of signage out there that says only take what you're going to grow, right? Because some people, they get a little excited. So hopefully they'll just divvy out a little bit of seeds and put them in the packets and take it with them, And a lot of folks now, because we've been doing this for so many years, a lot of folks bring seeds with them, but they don't want to set up their own table. So they just bring seeds and put them out on this community table. So it's almost like a give a seed, take a seed type of situation. So by the end of the day, those tables are typically still full of seeds, but it's completely different seeds than what the day started with. It's amazing to see. It's pretty wild.
Now, do you divide them up in classrooms and auditoriums, or like this is a lettuce room? This goes in this area. Auditorium, the peppers, stuff like that. Do you divide them up that way, or just separate them?
Just separate them out. So this was our first year in the high school, so it was a bigger venue, and we had the gymnasium is where we had set up. So we had just long rows of tables, and then we divided the seeds out on that. And then we had speakers over in the auditorium and that sort of thing. So we're still, every few years we kind of outgrow. There's a bug right here. Every few years we kind of outgrow our space. So then we have to figure out what we're doing with how we're going to utilize the new space, So it's always a learning thing. It's always in flux. It's always growing and changing. And I appreciate that actually, because it keeps it fresh for me. If it was just the same thing over and over again, I would get bored with it and I couldn't keep doing it. So it's nice that it's, always changing and growing. It's evolving, I guess we could say, right?
Hey, you keep on growing and learning.
Right, absolutely. That's it. That's the beauty of life.
It certainly has grown since I've watched it. It's just amazing. You had some wonderful speakers again this year. I really enjoyed the guy last year that talked about the soil from Dow Gardens, the master gardener. The topic was don't treat your soil like dirt, which is very near to Joe's heart.
Chuck Martin. Yeah, that was a big deal to have him come out. He's like a local gardening hero, really. And so that was really cool. It's nice that we get some local speakers, and then we always have, a keynote or somebody that travels from far away. Like we just had Dr. David Shields. He came out. He traveled from South Carolina, I believe it was, to come out. We've had Vivian Sansour from the Palestine Seed Library. We had Rowan White come out. John Kuykendall. We've had some big names in the seed saving world that we've been so blessed to be able to get them to come and share their stories with folks. It's a really cool thing. You know how it is with any event though. As soon as the event's over, I'm always like, oh my gosh, do I have to do that again? Because it burns you right out. But I'm already, what is it, April? It's about to be May, and I'm already itching for next year's event for sure.
I'm always excited. I always mark it on my calendar, and it's like, are you available to do something? No, I'm not available that weekend. No, and it's like, who's going with me? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Every year I've taken somebody different with me. In the last 2 years, my daughters went.
Do you guys have to get a permit and everything for the school?
No, we work directly with the school to have us come out. So, they do other community events as well. They have a beautiful auditorium at this place. It's a 600-seat auditorium. It's gorgeous. So a lot of other community organizations will use the venue as well. So we rent it directly from them.
And their jazz band provided music for us in between speakers this year. It was so nice. So like if you just wanted a place to go sit for a minute I'm not a crowd person. I don't want to be around that many people, but you could go in there and sit for a few minutes. They're playing this relaxing music. It was really cool.
It was cool. So we were able to pull that off because my oldest son, Elijah, plays drums for the jazz band. So that was my inside there with those guys. And that was extra special for me because many, many years ago, before Small House Farm, when we were doing other things with our life, one of my activities was we organized a music festival. And it was a charity event. A lot of the money went to Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And we'd have a disc golf tournament and art vendors. And we would book these bands to come and play all day, 12 bands the whole day. And I kind of started to miss that aspect of event organizing. The live music is really nice. So to be able to tie some live music into this event really is a full circle thing for me. It's pretty cool that we got to do it.
So thank you everybody for coming tonight. We have 43 people in the chat right now, and we have more on other sites. So thank you guys for all being here. If you are new, please make sure you hit that bell and subscribe. We appreciate it. So I want to go to your YouTube page, and let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So here it is. Small House Farm. There we go. And I love the tomato test. Every time I could never get enough of tomato testing. So in this video, you talked about, let me see. a couple of varieties I never had before, which is really cool because I grow a lot of tomatoes. And so when you see something new, it's like,
oh yeah,
that's pretty awesome. So the one was the Paragon Angelico. So I'm gonna pop on this for a second. Let me know if you guys see this. I'm just gonna play a couple seconds of this so you guys could. There's so much to talk about with his YouTube page, guys. I mean, you could just see from here, from fertilizer with comfrey to herbal salve, the Three Sisters gardening. I mean, another tomato testing 2022. There's a Seeds and Weeds podcast. I mean, some great interviews. We know Tony from Simplified Gardening. Tony's a great guy. What a great guy.
He was awesome. Yeah, for sure. He was great fun to chat with, for sure.
And
the podcast has been cool because it's really introduced me to so many people. When we first launched it, I just called in all these favors to my friends in the gardening world and said, hey, come and be on the show. But now that we've been around for a year plus, I have a lot of folks reach out to me now to be on the show. I have a lot of publicists, reach out. They've got an author that's got a book out. They want to get some publicity for him or whatever. And it's just been really, really a fun experience to get to meet all these folks and have these conversations. There's so many people are doing so many awesome things, and they have so many different perspectives and experiences. And it's really cool for me to have the opportunity to have these conversations, but then also to document them so then other folks can listen to them too. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love this. I was listening to some today, and I'm like, oh, that's right, there we go. And I know you had Urban Gardener had you on, and you guys both switched there, which is pretty cool. And he comes here once in a while. So
yeah, he's a groovy cat for sure.
He could talk, boy. He can talk for a while.
He knows a lot of stuff.
We went off one live. We talked for another 2 or 3 hours later.
I believe it.
So with the podcast, what's been your most memorable moment with the interview? Like somebody who like, oh, this was so awesome.
Well, man, that's a question, Joe. Wow. Wow. I don't know. I've had some really good ones. We had Jennifer Jewell on the show. She has the radio program and podcast called Cultivating Place. And her publicist reached out to me, and I'm a big fan of her work. And so to have her publicist reach out to me, I was like almost a little starstruck about it. I was like, I can't even believe it. That was a really good one. To be able to sit down and talk with her was a ton of fun. Oh my gosh. We did one. I had Del Barber get a hold of me, and he's in Canada somewhere. I can't recall off the top of my head, but he's a farmer, but he's also a musician. And he just gotten this new album out. So they were trying to promote this new album. And I was like, oh, that's close. Come on the show. We'll talk about your farm. We'll bring up a couple of songs because a lot of his songs just like folk music where he kind of talks about the farm. So I was like, well, this is kind of fun. And editing the episode was so much fun for me because we spliced in some of his tunes and that sort of thing. And, it was a really cool experience for me on the production end of things to be able to try something I'd never done before. And it turned out really nice, I thought. And it was really fun. I've been having so much fun with the podcast. Like I said, I wish I'd been doing it for years. I could have been doing this by now. I can't even believe that it's like something I can do for work because it's so much fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with Corky and I, we started this channel 4 months ago. We actually have like close to 10,000 subscribers now, which is absolutely amazing.
That's awesome.
The people that have come to us for, hey, can you promote this? Or, hey, could you sell our products and we'll become a partner? We have stuff with drones. Like, this is not the place for drones right now with our page. We're not that type of channel. I'm happy enough to get a membership. Nobody here is going to buy a drone.
Right.
That sprays fields,
Right.
I mean, I'm like, we're just like, what? You got to be kidding me. Now I get a whole bunch of fun that just wants to come up because I can't believe that actually was somebody wanted to collaborate with us with that.
Well, they can see that you've got a good following and people are watching your show. So, that just means you're doing it right. That's what I would say.
Uh, so, could you share any tips for novice gardeners or foragers? Like, what should they actually do if they're going out? They should just bring it home. Should they take a picture with a camera and identify it? Um, what's your
Okay.
biggest, easiest tip for a novice, somebody just beginning, or your kid, for example, and never been out in the woods?
Sure. So as far as foraging goes, because you kind of asked about gardening and foraging, but we're going to jump into the foraging one. As far as foraging goes, I always recommend, if you have a field guide or a resource to help you identify a book with photos, take it out into the woods with you. I don't pick plants that you don't even know what they are and bring them home and try to figure it out. And what's the purpose of killing a plant that you don't even know what it is? Go out in the field with your book, with your photos, and take the time to learn about it. You know what I mean? I know a lot of folks like to use those apps, and I don't really recommend those. I'm sure there's probably some really nice ones, but the ones that I've played around with, the inaccuracy it's wild. When I try to use it on plants that I know, just to see, and how often they're incorrect. So I don't really recommend a lot of apps to folks. But like I said, there's probably some really nice ones. Maybe I just haven't tried them yet. But I'm a book guy, so bring a book out with some photos and really take the time to identify those plants. If you have an actual living person in your life that knows about plants, that's the best resource ever. Go out in the woods with them and learn from them. And you don't have to go far. That's another thing. Right in your own backyard, literally in your own backyard, are so many wonderful plants that you can learn about. Many plants that you probably already know. A lot of us can identify a dandelion. A lot of us can identify plantain. We know what those plants are, right? So instead of trying to go learn something new and exotic, go to those plants that you already know and find out how wonderful they are. They offer so many different benefits medicinally and as food and all these things. Learn about those plants first that are right available to you right in your own backyard. And from there, as you become more comfortable, obviously you can explore further, but keep it simple and learn about the plants that are already spending time with you.
Well, that's what you did with one of your books. Some of the easiest things that could be right in your backyard you can use. It's just simple things.
It is the simple things. And that was the thing with the artisan herbalist that we wanted to capture, was so we kind of broke the herbs up into a couple of different parts. There's herbs that are, that you can grow in your garden. And then there's herbs that are growing right outside your door. And then there's herbs that are probably already in your house. You know what I mean? When you open up your spice rack, there's a ton of wonderful things in there that you already have. And you can learn about all these different ways that you can use them. I know it's fun and exciting to do something different and exotic and off the wall or whatever. That's cool. And that has a place, sure. But especially for somebody that's new to it, keep it simple, keep it local, really hone in on those things. You could pick, it's better to know 12 uses for one plant than one use for 12 different plants, right? One plant can do many things for us. So just take the time to get to know one at a time.
What kills me is everything that's being used on the soil right now. I mean, you go out, your neighbors, everybody's spraying, they're killing their dandelions and everything else there. Everybody else is, insecticides, pesticides, everything. Everybody's throwing stuff. We're in our last
Yeah, Joe. People are off the wall, man. There's some wild people out there doing some crazy stuff. That's for sure. But I think that, number one, I think it's very important that we focus on our own backyards, to really hone in on what we can do better. Not these other people that are doing something that we don't agree with, but what can we do better? And then maybe connect with some like-minded folks and how can we improve, And if we continue like you're doing right here with your show, when you're building this community and you're getting like-minded people together to learn from each other and share and growing together, then maybe eventually we can overpower those other people. But if we get too caught up thinking about, oh, those guys shouldn't be doing that, then we've distracted ourselves. See, we're putting our energy this way when we should be putting our energy this way. That's how I like to look at it.
But it's all about changing mindsets. The only way you change your mindset is with kids today.
You got it, man. You got it. And that's what I say all the time with my kids. Like, my time on this planet, limited. You know what I mean? It's ticking by the second here. But those guys, everything that I can put into them to help them do something better for this world, that's the most powerful work that we can do, is getting kids into the soil, right? Get them some seeds, stick them outside, make them eat some plants, for sure.
But kids are still taught. First thing you do is you plant the seed, then you grow it, then you put fertilizer down.
Well, yeah, there's a whole curve. There's a situation, where sometimes people don't know better, right? They've been taught a certain way to do things, and that's how they understand things, and that's their view of the world, right? And even though we may see the fault in that, perhaps we can't necessarily hold it against them for not knowing any better, but we can maybe try to show them a different way. We would call it a better way, but we could show it a different way, and maybe they'll learn to see it as a better way as well.
Now, go ahead, Tammy. Go ahead.
Today, as soon as the kids got off the bus, we collected violets. So
Nice.
you just teach them one plant at a time. It's just good advice that you just gave. Just do one thing and teach them how to use one thing really well before you go on to the next.
When Elijah was little, when he's 15 now, so when he was half that age or something, it was years ago. I was teaching a salve making workshop at a local wellness center, and I needed some ingredients. And I said to Elijah, "Hey Elijah, could you go pick me some dandelion flowers? I'll pay you, a penny a piece, right?" And he says, he's a negotiator. He says, "Oh no, Dad, I'm gonna need like a quarter." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me, right?" So we had a little back and forth as we're negotiating this, and we settled on a nickel. I'll pay you a nickel a flower, which that's a pretty good rate. And he went out there, and it cost me $35. This kid cost me. Wow. Yeah, right. What an industrious little fellow, for sure. But it was so good for him because he was working, he was making some money, he spent his day outside harvesting nature, learning about the plants, watching the bees buzzing about, and that is a good day at work, right? When you can understand that nature offers you these gifts, if you can learn how to work with them and work with nature, everything that we need is right there for us. Everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you know the question to this, but somebody just needed some garden help. Does anyone know how to combat the leaf-footed bug? They can be relentless. Any feedback would be great. Thanks.
I don't have a specific answer about the leaf-footed bug, but I do have a tip for folks that are interested in trying to keep some insects, pests off of their plants or whatever it might be. And over the years, I've tried a number of different things, and you'll see stuff online where people use, garlic. They'll make like a garlic spray. Oh, there it is. Ooh, it's a creepy looking guy.
I don't have it. I haven't seen that around here anyway.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, but I have found what I like to make is tobacco tea. So I'll go to like the cigarette shop or the tobacco shop where they sell bulk tobacco, and I'll buy that, and you brew it into a tea, and I put it in my pump sprayer with a little Dawn dish soap, so it sticks to things, and I'll spray that, and insects will not mess with anything that I've sprayed tobacco tea on. It's the most poisonous stuff. Now, don't put it on your tomato plants. Put it on your tomato plants, you might get the tobacco mosaic virus transferred, so don't do that. But for other plants, it's fantastic. It is the greatest insect repellent I've ever worked with. So I don't have experience with that particular insect, but that would be my recommendation anyways.
So, Bevin, I want to play a little skip it from that tomato video, which I was supposed to do before, but I kind of skipped it. So, okay. Tomato testing 2023. Look at those tomatoes, guys. Do you guys see that on your side?
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the third annual Small House Farm Tomato Tasting Extravaganza. We got a regular cast of tomato tasters here, a regular rogues gallery of tomato samplers. Who do we got? We got Anakin. Heather. Hello. And Elijah. And of course me, Bevin. You might remember me. Here we are. We're going to eat some tomatoes.
Okay, guys, I'm going to skip forward a little bit.
For tomatoes here at Small House, but they'd be a lot more flavorful in the winter.
Oh, definitely. They would be a burst of flavor. They have a nice looking inside. And that's important if you like to cut your cherry tomatoes and put them in a salad. Sometimes I like to keep them full.
I like
It's making me hungry, Joe.
I can't wait to have my first tomato.
We
got a long way to go.
Yeah.
They're like little watermelons.
Ah.
I think we should give this one.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's do this one. We got a big pile of them. This is
Oh, that's a
another
good
one
one.
in the past. The Costaluto Genovese. It's a tomato from Genoa, Italy. And Costaluto is the description of the ridges, the shape of it. Very, very cool, very pretty. Another tomato that we've had the tomato tasting in the
There's a
past.
description
This year, and I think it's probably because of the weather,
of all tomatoes
they've
in
been a
this
little bit
testing.
smaller.
So you guys check that out. I love tomato videos. Tomatoes and peppers,
And
absolutely.
crazy
Always.
productive, like baskets and baskets of them.
Yeah, and they've become some of the most popular videos that we make. So people do seem to really enjoy them.
It was this year.
All the tomatoes that we grew. Beautiful looking tomato.
I specifically remember the shape of the tomato from last year.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's super cool. I've been selecting for size though, even though I think it's environmental that they're smaller. I've been saving seeds from the big ones, just for that.
I think they might look unique, but they're actually quite classic. This is a more classic looking tomato.
Absolutely, this is a very old-fashioned tomato. This is fun. Let's go back to the Paragon tomato.
Let's go about
Now,
30 more
one of the reasons
seconds.
that Livingston wanted to make a round red tomato was because of the canning industry. Canning tomatoes was really popular in the late 1800s, but it was difficult because most of the tomatoes look like this, especially mechanically, to get the skins off of the tomatoes. So everybody was on the hunt for a smooth, round tomato like this. Easier to work with, right? The Paragon's the guy that found it. He gets all the credit for it. But boy, these classic tomatoes. Let's take this one and break it right in half. Ready?
Oh, look at that flesh. Wow.
Look at that. It's like bright pink.
Yeah, it's interesting looking. It looks like, it looks
like,
like
frozen.
That's weird.
Now, if you want.
I mean, I absolutely love. You know what I like most about those videos, tomato videos? Each one has a story. Each one, and if, what's the most fascinating story you heard of a tomato? Like you were like, wow.
You're asking some amazing questions. So I'm a story guy for sure. One of the things, tomatoes, anything that we grow, I'm fascinated by the stories and the history of that. If you read any of my earlier books, like From Our Seeds and Their Keepers, Saving Our Seeds, there's stories all through there because it's so interesting to me, the history of people and places and plants that we can explore when we understand the history of these tomatoes, or even the names behind them. It's what would be the most interesting ones. I don't know. Okay, so here's a story. One time, I was in Pikeville, Kentucky for a seed swap, and I had a young man come up to me, a young kid, and he says, "Mister, I got these tomato seeds out of the back of my grandma's freezer. Would you be interested in any of them?" And I was like, "Absolutely, right? Yes, please." And so he gave me 10 seeds. And after I met with the family, these seeds belonged to a lady by the name of Nell Bryson. And Nell Bryson had these seeds. They had been in her freezer for 65 years in the back of her freezer. Wow. And I took these guys home, and out of the 10 seeds, 7 of them grew. And they were, big honking, big beefsteak, bicolor, yellow orchis on the outside, red core, super productive, super delicious, very historic, right? 65 years they've been in this freezer. So for me, that type of a story is really exciting. And then I do a lot of work with Slow Food, the Slow Food organization, and they do a program every year called Plant a Seed. And they get seeds from different seed companies, and they create these little packets, and they sell them, and they raise the money, and then these seeds all go to school garden programs across the country. And we've grown seeds for them a number of times. And part of the purpose of this program, not only to provide these kids with seeds at these school gardens, but is to ensure the preservation of these old varieties. By distributing these seeds across the country, now everybody can have it. So I've been growing seeds for this program for a couple of years, and one year they asked me if I wanted to do a tomato. So we did this Nell Bryson tomato. We grew it out, and we distributed it, across the country. So now what was 10 seeds in a freezer is now thousands upon thousands of seeds all over the country to ensure that preservation. And they asked me to write up a blog post about it for the website. And as I was digging through history, I was able to connect with that kid, and I was able to connect with the family, and we were able to get the seeds back to the family so the family could grow Nell Bryson's tomato again too. And that was really the highlight of the whole story, right? To be able to bring these seeds, not only to preserve them, but to return them to the family from where they came. And that's pretty powerful stuff. So that would be the story I would share now. If you get a hold of me tomorrow and ask me a seed story, I'd probably tell you something totally different. But that was a really exciting thing, for sure. One time, here's another story. one time I met a family at the Song and Spirit Institute for Peace in Southeast Michigan, and they shared a bean with me that they had gotten from a man named Kermit when they were in Cades Cove, Tennessee. And after some research, it turns out that it was the last man that ever lived in the Smoky Mountain National Park before it became a national park. And these were his family's beans that they had passed down. So we went to Cades Cove, Tennessee and met the family and brought these beans down there. And there's a whole museum display. And now they grow the beans at the museum. So it's like a living, museum of these beans that had been grown in that soil for hundreds of years. And it was just by chance that this family had gotten it and they met me and they shared it with me. And we were able to make that connection. And, well, that's powerful stuff, man. The seeds, we become parts of the story in a way when that sort of thing happens. When we can get these seeds back to where they belong, when we can get people growing them and understanding that significance. Growing beans is great, but when you got a bean with a cool story, now you're going to really care about it. You're going to grow it. You're going to save your seeds. You're going to understand the importance of that moment of time that you're in. And it all comes back to those stories. That's some of the best thing that we can do, save those stories.
I lost one of those beans once.
Well, that's a sad story.
I was the keeper, and we lost them. We had a neighbor. His name was Noble Wolf. He shot a goose, and in the crop of this goose were these beans, and he grew them out, and he gave them to our family. And my mom had a friend grow a whole bunch of them, so we had 1 pint of them. And I took them to my friend to have him put in his garden, and his house burned down. And the beans were in his house. And so I lost my heirloom, and you can't ever get it back.
The point of your story here, really, aside from the tragedy that you're sharing, is how important it is to share these seeds with as many people as possible, right?
Exactly.
Get these seeds into people's hands, because that's going to happen. You're going to have a crop failure. Something bad could happen. You're going to lose your seed stock. But if you've shared the seeds with enough people, somebody somewhere's got it.
If I'd have just kept a handful and not put all of them in one basket, one garden basket, so to speak, because my friend was going to grow them out for me. And if I had just kept a handful back, I had enough, and I didn't. And so you need to get them out the way you're doing, and not keep them in the closet in your, pantry, and get them out. And
yeah. We've been saving seeds here for a long time, and inevitably, you kind of collect them as it happens, and we'll keep a sample of this and put it in the freezer and la-di-da, and, exchange the other seeds or whatever might happen. And, I've got over 300 different varieties of beans at this point. And that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? I'm never going to be able to grow that many beans. And, when I was counting through, and I was like, what's happening here? Why? They're treasures. They're valuable. And that's part of this reason that I'm like, I should need to hold on to these things. But they're not doing anybody any favors holding on to them. You got to get them out to people. You got to get them in the soil so they can grow, right? You got to disperse these seeds. Mother Nature doesn't hoard seeds. She disperses seeds. And that's what we should be doing too, right?
And you have another initiative that you're doing that with that I've also benefited from, and that is where you're putting seeds in libraries. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Oh, absolutely. So, seed libraries in and of themselves are very, very awesome. Okay. And if for your listeners, if you're not familiar with what a seed library is, a seed library functions much like a traditional library, and they're often housed in libraries, right? And you could come into the seed library and you check out seeds, right? Just like you check out books, and you take the seeds home and you grow them in your garden and you enjoy that produce. And then in the fall, you bring the seeds back to restock the seed library, just like you bring your book back when you're done reading it, right? So now you've got an influx. These seeds are going out, fresh seeds are coming in. It's like a hub for your community. All these different people coming in and out of the seed library, learning from each other, getting to know each other, sharing these locally adapted seeds. It's pretty awesome stuff. And when I started getting connected with the seed libraries here in Michigan, there was 25 of them that I was able to encounter in the state. And I was traveling to all of them, helping them educate their communities about how they could save those seeds and get those seeds back. And then I'd visit other communities, and they would ask questions like the same questions. What is a seed library? How do I start a seed library? Why is a seed library valuable? And I realized I'm answering the same questions at every place that I went to. So I said, we need like a hub of information so folks can just come to this place, and learn about this. And that was what started the Michigan Seed Library Network. That was it. And at the beginning of it, it was just a website that some students put together for us. And the website still exists. It's miseedlibrary.org, and you could go to it. And there's an interactive map where you can go across the state and you can find seed libraries and look at it. There's also a bunch of downloadables for folks that want to start seed libraries. If you want to learn how to save seeds, there's all sorts of information on there. Stuff about seed swaps. It's a wealth of information. And now there are almost 150 seed libraries here in the state of Michigan. And to put that in perspective, there's maybe 700 of them nationwide. 150 of them are here in Michigan, right? And a lot of it stemmed from this network that we created. When we created this hub, we built this community. And by doing that, we created a place where folks can come together and learn from each other, right? While I'm talking, I'm plugging my computer in so it doesn't die. And so now we've even created a seed library summit where Michigan seed librarians can get together and spend time. So we got turned on by this. At the beginning, there's a thing called, and it still exists, the Community Seed Network. And I was on the advisory council for the Community Seed Network. And they had a map and all this sort of stuff. And it was nationwide. And I said, let's just scale this down and do it state by state, right? So we can keep it local. That's the benefit of this whole thing, is to keep it local. So we kind of took a number of those ideas and scaled it to a very hyper local thing. So people in these communities here in the state of Michigan can learn together and share together. And so now we're trying to replicate this in some other states across the Midwest to help that happen. But really, it's one of those things. It's just like the seed swap. Once you get that ball rolling, it kind of keeps rolling on its own, right? So a lot of these things, there's a lot of momentum, a lot of forward movement in the seed library situation. And a lot of it did start because of what we were doing years ago to get this network started. But a lot of it's happening now of its own momentum. There are so many people involved now that make this work. And it ensures that communities have access to free seeds, free seeds and the educational opportunities to learn how to grow them and harvest them, which is just as important as having the seeds, really, right?
How did you get involved with Baker's Creek? Because you've written articles with them. I see you've been at the Heirloom Expo with all those squash and building that pyramid of squash there.
One year I got to help build the squash tower. It was pretty awesome. And now I organize the seed swap there. That's where the big seed swap that we do is out there at the Heirloom Expo. I got connected with Baker Creek, oh my gosh, many years ago, 2014 maybe is when it started. They had a program that they had put together that was called Gardens Across America. And they were essentially just trying to connect gardeners from across America, build like a little social, connection for folks. And they sent seeds out to everybody and said, grow these different seeds out and save your seeds. And we can all kind of, talk about our growing experiences. And so I did that. I got some very rare beans that they had sent to me and that we grew out here. And it was a really cool experience. And I sent my seeds back and I kind of thought that was the end of it. And then they reached out and they said, we'd like to get to know you a little bit better. We're really impressed by the beans that you sent back. And I was like, what do you mean you're impressed by my beans? Well, apparently a lot of the people that they had sent seeds to sent nothing back. And some of the people that sent stuff back, the seeds weren't properly cleaned or they didn't have a lot. And I sent a significant quantity of very nice seeds back to them. And they said, you obviously know how to save seeds. Would you be interested in doing more seed saving for us? And I was like, well, yeah, absolutely. Of course, let's keep doing this. And so that was kind of the beginning of our relationship, was me just growing seeds for Baker Creek. And then they invited me to come and speak at one of their festivals that they do there in Missouri. And I went down there and we kind of all met and hung out and had a good time. And we all kind of became friends. And it's really just kind of gone on from there. Now I speak at their events all the time. I go out to their thing in California. I write, if you get their whole seed catalog, the big catalog that they do with all the seed stories in it, I write a number of those. I research and document a lot of the seed stories that are in their catalog. And we've become fast friends over the years, and it all just started with a handful of beans, like all good things in life do. A handful of beans, right?
That's amazing. Beans are so easy to seed save. I mean, a lot of people have problems with understanding like certain species won't cross-pollinate. the same species will, you're going to have issues. But if they're different, you could just grow them in the same area. Can you elaborate a little more on that? Like peppers, for example.
Well, and that is an important thing to think about when we're saving seeds is cross-pollination, varietal purity, the purposes as to why we're trying to grow and save these seeds. Are we trying to preserve a particular traits of a variety or the historical aspects of a variety? Because then it's very important to keep it pure. Are we going to allow them to cross-pollinate to create new varieties? That's certainly a possibility, and that's where varieties come from. And that's a lot what nature does when she's left to her own devices. Cross-pollination happens in nature. I think at the end of the day, to answer your question, it's all about the educational component. It's about learning to understand how these plants grow, what these plants need, and learning to identify all of their traits throughout their life cycle. When they're healthy, when they're doing well, when the seeds are starting to be mature, when do I harvest the seeds? How are these flowers being pollinated, right? You can't avoid cross-pollination if you don't even understand how pollination works, right? From one flower to the next. So I think a lot of it comes down to the educational component, and we're very detached from that. A lot of people don't understand where their food comes from, let alone how their food grows, let alone how the seeds are produced that grows that food, right? Well, that's like 3 steps off of what's happening at the dinner table. So it can get very confusing for folks. But I always like to remind people, folks have been saving seeds since the dawn of agriculture, which is 10,000 years. 10,000 years people have been saving seeds, and not scientists and scholars, but everyday people like you and me, every person. If you wanted to eat food, you had to grow food. And if you're going to grow food, you had to save seeds. It's something that every single person can do. And it's just taking the time to relearn all of those things. It's actually quite simple once you dig into it. There's some complexities here and there and biennials and this and that. We're not, but in the reality of it, big picture, it's a pretty simple thing to do, So when I wrote Saving Our Seeds, well, here, I'll back up. When I wrote my first book, From Our Seeds and Their Keepers, all that book is stories. These are stories from people that I met and the seeds that they were saving. And that was what I wanted to save. I'd met this lady, and her story is in the book as well. And we had been talking about her family corn. And, we talked on the phone all the time about this corn. And at one point she said to me, I'm so happy that you care about the story of this corn, because nobody in my family wants to hear it. My kids don't want to hear this story. Nobody cares about this corn. You're the only person I know that likes this story. And that's what hit me. And that was like a life-changing moment for me, because I realized if pretty soon she's not going to be around to tell this story anymore. And if I don't write this story down, it's gone.
It's lost forever.
It's lost, just like your seeds were, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I got to do something so I can share this story. So that was the impetus for that book. And that came out, and I was really happy and really proud of it. And everywhere that I went with it, people would get excited about the book, they'd be inspired, and they'd say, gosh, I wish this book told me how to save my seeds. Now I'm really excited about seeds. I need to know how to save them. So then my second book, Saving Our Seeds, is all about how to do that. And it's in the most simplified forms, so every single person can do this, and they should be able to do it. So I think we go through like 43 species of the most common food crops and how to grow and save the seeds, how pollination works. So if you want to ensure varietal purity, you can make sure that happens from one species to the next. And then, because of the way that I am as a person, there's a bunch of stories all through that book too, because I could not just write a how-to manual without sharing stories. So there's a lot of stories in there too, but it's mostly a practical how-to guide. And once you read it, you'll realize seed saving is something that's accessible to all people. You just need to know a couple of things, and then you can get out there and do it. Sometimes you don't even need to know all the things, because you can just go out there and do it. And sometimes if your plants cross-pollinate, it's okay, because they'll still grow food for you. And that's the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the easiest vegetables, we got beans, peas, lettuce, eggplant, peppers, tomatoes. Those things, if you grow them, save your seeds. Right?
Absolutely. Melons you can save seeds from. Your squash you can save your seeds from. I mean, if we think about, let's think about the culinary application of things. Let's think about a bell pepper, right? Every time you use a bell pepper in the kitchen, you cut it open and take the seeds out of it. Every time you eat a cantaloupe, you cut it open and take the seeds out of it. That is step number 2 of eating a melon, is taking the seeds out of it, right? Yeah. We just don't think about it. And then you compost the seeds or whatever you're doing with them. Well, wash them off, dry them out, save them. It's seed saving, right? I mean, we encounter seeds so many times in the kitchen. Seed saving is a culinary act, as far as I'm concerned. They are one and the same. There's no difference between those two things. Seed saving and preparing food and growing food are all the same topic, right? So next time, folks, when you're out in the kitchen working on something, look at how many times you encounter seeds. Just notice it. Notice every time you're in the world how often you encounter seeds, right? You know what I mean? You're cotton. This is my shirt is made from the seed dispersal mechanism of the cotton plant. You know what I mean? Like Almond Joy candy bars. Think about an Almond Joy candy bar. What are the three main ingredients in the Almond Joy candy bar? Chocolate, almonds, coconut, seeds. All three of them, seeds. Seeds are in everything that we do, right? We just have to learn to identify them, to recognize what's happening around us. And that's all seed saving is, recognizing what's happening around you. And when do you interact with it?
So we have a question in the chat. How do you save seeds from carrots?
That's a good question. Okay, so a carrot is a biennial plant. That means it needs to be overwintered. We call it vernalization, and that period of cold will trigger the reproductive cycle of the plant to make it flower, right? So you're going to grow your carrots just like you would grow your carrots, and you leave them in the garden over winter. And then the following spring, when they warm up, whoop, flower stalk will come out of them, right? And they'll produce a nice big umbel of a flower. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Now they're insect pollinated, right? So you're going to need little insects to get from here to there to move the pollen around to create your seeds. And they will create quite a few fuzzy little seeds. Now, one of the places that carrot seeds in particular can get sticky is cross-pollinating with the wild carrots that may grow around you. Here in Michigan, I have Queen Anne's lace growing wild as far as the eye can see. And Queen Anne's lace is wild carrot. That's where all carrots come from, right? And if you have Queen Anne's lace flowering and your carrots are flowering and they get cross-pollinated, your carrots will revert to a more wild trait. Not ideal, right? So some of the things that we can do is either grow carrot seeds where there's not Queen Anne's lace, I guess would work, or we can bag up and isolate those flowers to keep them away from the pollen from the Queen Anne's lace. That tends to work okay. You could paint them with a paintbrush if you wanted to move that pollen around. But what I've been finding in recent years here with the carrots that I've grown for seed is my carrots will flower. My carrots themselves from my garden that I've overwintered will flower before the Queen Anne's lace does, right? Those plants will then continue to flower into Queen Anne's lace territory, and then those flowers are not good. But my first round of carrot flowers that come out, I know are pure because the Queen Anne's lace hasn't started to blossom yet. So I can save those seeds and they're going to be perfectly fine. So it's just a little bit of understanding the life cycle of the plant and observation of what's going on around me. And it's a pretty simple task once I know those two things.
So we have a question in the chat. Gail 711 says, what is the best way to dry out your seeds?
So for most of my seeds, especially small wet ones, tomatoes and peppers and melons and those sorts of things, I will use paper plates. I love to put them out on paper plates. My favorite thing about paper plates is, one, they don't stick too bad. The seeds won't stick too bad to the plate. If they, you can break them loose if they do. But two, you can label the paper plate. You can write right on that paper plate what that variety is, right? And then when you're done, scribble it out and do another one. Because it's very critical that you label things every step of the way of the process, so you can remember what everything is. Paper plates work really well. A little fan on there for airflow is really nice. You can get those seeds dry in 10 to 14 days, no problem at all. For other seeds, dry seeds like beans and peas and those sorts of things, I put them out on screens. I've got a series of screens. It's right on the other side of this wall. It's where our pole barn is. It's essentially what we have is they're pretty much screen doors. They're shelves of screen doors with fans on them, and that works pretty well. But you can use any sort of screen. Window screen would work just fine. You can get special seed-saving screens. The reason we use the screen is for that airflow. You want to make sure you get good airflow around these seeds so that they can dry. And just lay them out in a cool, dark place and put a fan on them and let nature take its course and let them dry down, and they should be good to go.
Now, what's the benefits of using hot peppers in your oils? And each one has different components. I know. I'm just trying to be very general here.
Hot peppers in my what?
Oils.
Oh, so okay. So we use cayenne pepper in a number of our topical medicinal products. And the variety of the pepper really doesn't matter so much. When you read a lot of herbals and that sort of thing, the cayenne pepper is referred to most often. But what we're really particularly concerned with here is the capsaicin, right? The capsaicin is what gives the pepper its heat, and that's really where a lot of that medicinal benefit's going to come from. So any pepper that has capsaicin in it is going to be beneficial, just like a cayenne pepper would be. If you can grow other hot peppers that have an equal Scoville rating as a cayenne pepper, it would almost be identical in your topical products, your oils that you make, as far as the capsaicin count. So you can certainly use them interchangeably. The reason I use cayenne pepper the most is because cayenne pepper is a very thin wall, whereas some of your peppers have a thicker, more meaty pepper to it, right? These nice thin walls, they dry down very easy. It's very easy to dry these peppers so that I can then use them in oil or I can store them. A really meaty pepper with all that moisture and water content, you don't want to put that in oil. You know what I mean? Oil and water don't mix well. You're introducing bacteria. That's not ideal. So the cayenne pepper is a nice choice simply because of that really thin wall, makes it very easy to dry into a product that I could use. But that being said, any pepper with the equal heat rating would work. And just if you can find a nice thin walled one that's easy to dry, you can use that absolutely just the same.
No, I seen your pepper video and like the 5 peppers. I think top 5 peppers. One was Shishito, Tabasco, Calabria. Does that sound right?
The Calabrian chili. Yep.
Fish, and then your cayenne. So, can you talk a little bit? I never heard of Calabria. I don't know how to pronounce that.
So the Calabrian chili comes from the Calabrian region of like southern Italy is where it comes from. And in Italy, they often use it. They'll pack it in oil. They'll pack it in oil and utilize it that way to store it in the oil and then use it on their foods that way. I've also dried it and used it as a spice, and it works really, really nice. It's a smaller pepper, good heat to it. It's got some good heat to it. It certainly would be a nice option for as a medicinal, although it does have a little bit more meat to it than a cayenne pepper does. It's got a nice heat, and they grow really well for us. I got our seeds originally from the Heirloom Seed House in Portland, Oregon, and grew them out, and they did incredible for us. You know, if you think about the seeds came from southern Italy, and then they were growing the seeds in Oregon, and then I brought them here to Michigan. I thought, well, we'll see how they do for me that first year. First year, gangbusters. They did wonderful, you know. So it's definitely a pepper that I recommend.
And you also had a comfrey video fertilizer. Now, what is that? What's the benefits of comfrey fertilizer? Like, what does that do for? What does that do? What is that? What goes?
So good. Ready for this? Okay, so comfrey is a perennial herb, number one, which is important because once you have this comfrey established, you will have this comfrey for years and years to go, right? So that's really nice. Comfrey grows an incredibly long taproot, way down into way down in there. And it pulls all these minerals and micronutrients and all this stuff up from the subsoil and then stores it in its leaves. Now, these leaves will break down and decompose very quickly. And as soon as they decompose, they release all of these minerals and micronutrients into wherever they are when they decompose, right? So it's like loaded with goodness. You could literally take comfrey leaves and use them as a mulch. And as the mulch, as it decomposes, it'll add nutrients to your soil. But we like to take the comfrey leaves and add them, like in the video, we add them to buckets of water. We kind of let it ferment. It's an aerobic process. So you got to incorporate air into it to help with the microbe growth. And then it creates the most incredible fertilizer for your plants. It's potent and it's strong. A lot of times we will use the comfrey that's dried from the previous year. So right now, my comfrey in my garden is already booming. Right. So I can get fresh stuff already. So anything that I've got dried and left over from last year out here in the apothecary is going to become fertilizer. Right. And then we're going to utilize it on our plants. Really, really good stuff for sure.
Love that. Let me see. Tammy, are you muted?
Yes, because my son walked through, so I didn't want.
Oh, okay. I'm like, were you trying to say something this time? And
No, I
had
just
no idea. I'm like, oh no.
it's you know, the busy hour we're here right now, so I just muted it while they were walking through the.
So, Bevin, some of the stuff you find in your yard, like stinging nettle, dandelion, red clover, witch hazel, autumn, olive, mullein, like all those little things. Elderberries all over the place once you get them going.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Talk about some of the what do we need? Okay, we started off when you were talking about before. Just worry about yourself first, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. How do we teach our kids this? Like a compost, for example. Compost should be taught kids growing up. Hey, everything we should do in compost. In New Jersey, it's just your plastics. This goes here, that goes here. This is your garbage. Here goes your plastics. But nobody talks about stuff you put in your yard to start your own soil, worm compost, anything like that. So again, that should start when kids are in kindergarten. How do we get to grow like dandelion is good for you at that age? Because my wife, right now, if my wife sees a dandelion, hey, can you put weed killer out there? And here, it's I'm like, haven't you been listening to my show?
right. That's a good question, Joe. So, I mean, really, it comes down to just involving them, having them be a part of it. It's so often that, sometimes having your kids with you will slow you down. It will make it harder to do your chores sometimes. You know what I mean? You're out here trying to work and you got to help the kid along or whatever it might be. But man, it's worth it. It's worth it. Incorporate these kids every time. Have them tag along. Have them walk with you. Like the story I was telling you about Elijah picking dandelions. Of course, he was trying to negotiate a higher pay, but then his next question was, what in the world do you want all these dandelions for? There's my learning opportunity, right? And then we just have that conversation. Just bring them with you. Bring the kid out. Be like, hey, somebody's got to flip this compost. And he'd be like, why do you got to flip the compost? There's your learning opportunity, right? Like every chance you have just to bring the kids with you, have them be a part of it. Take them with you to the grocery store. Talk about the stuff that you see there. Just every chance you have, We can't really count on the schools doing those sorts of things. The schools are understaffed. They're underfunded. They got so many things going on. It's like really hard for them to do anything. And you know what I mean? It's very difficult to do. But, we're lucky. We kind of, we live in a rural place. So we have a rural school. So they've got a couple of raised beds out there. And when the kids were little, I went to the school, talked to the kids about it. I brought beans. We planted lettuce. You know what I mean? Like I just went to the school and said, hey, these kids need to learn about it. I'm going to come tell them about it. And so I went there and did. And it's just about taking every opportunity we have to have those conversations, right? Have those conversations with kids, have them with the neighbors, have them with anybody who's within earshot. That's the best that we can do, right? So just keep those kids next to you and let them observe. Let them watch and see the things that you do. And then they're going to be curious about it and they're going to try to do it too.
Okay.
Kids are sponges, man. They'll soak up anything,
Without a doubt. Today more than ever. That's what they're always looking at things, head down, and that's it.
Well, you know what? If you take that device out of their hands, they're looking right down at those dandelions.
And if you don't want to bend over to pick the violets, you get their engagement. You can stand there and hold the jar while they put the violets in.
Oh, yeah. So we'll pick up acorns. We'll gather acorns here, and it's such a simple thing. I'll get two and put them out there, and who can get more acorns in their box? Right?
Yep.
There's a competition all of a sudden, and now it's super fun. And everybody's doing chores, and nobody cares that it's a chore. Everybody just wants to win the game. There's not even a prize. But you know what I mean? Bragging rights, I guess.
I got
so Laura just came in, and Laura said, if you harvest comfrey leaves, do they come back the same year?
Yes, absolutely they do. So all the comfrey that's coming up right now, like I mentioned, so I got comfrey coming up. So all my dry comfrey is going to turn into fertilizer. All the comfrey that's coming up out here, when I go to plant my tomatoes, I'll dig a nice deep hole for my tomatoes. And at the bottom of that hole, I'll put lots of goodies, right? I'll put some compost down in there and things like that. And I will put comfrey leaves down in that hole also, right? So we will harvest a lot of our comfrey right on tomato planting days. It'll be back. It'll come back again. You can get 2, 3, sometimes 4 harvests out of the same plant. It's like a cut and come again. You keep cutting it, it keeps coming back. And it'll spread a little bit too. So now you got a lot of comfrey. So, but yes, short answer, absolutely. Harvest those leaves. They'll come right back and give you more.
So Laura Larson says, what do you do with violets?
Well, I do 2 things. Violets are a natural cough medicine. So I make violet syrup for the adults, but I also make violet jelly because if I can get the kids to eat their cough medicine on toast in the morning, they don't even know that they're getting cough medicine. So that's what I use it for.
If you could give kids medicine and they don't even realize it's medicine, you're definitely doing it right, right?
Yeah. They're begging me, can I have that jelly on my toast? Nope, you're fine. You get the elderberry with it today. Or the
That's
blueberry.
awesome. That's awesome.
So we're going to check out Bevin's website right now. So let's go check out the books. So here are some Bevin's books: Seed and Nut Oils, The Artesian Herbalist, Saving Our Seeds, From Our Seeds and Their Keeper. And you got the new series: Grow Great Vegetables, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Minnesota, Wisconsin. So, and he's now booking for 24, 25.
Oh, yeah.
So what is the book that's coming out in 2 weeks?
So if you visit my website, smallhousefarm.com, which is kind of like the storefront for our homestead, it's you'll see the book on there. It's called The Heritage Pantry: Modern Methods of Preserving Food the Old-Fashioned Way. And it was something that we did for Ogden Press, and it was so much fun to work on. I had a blast doing it. It was so cool. So it's got, obviously there's canning and pickling and preserving with salt and fat and oil and smoking and curing and dehydrating and all these different things. And one thing there it is right there, right on the left. We're doing pre-sales right now. It comes out May 15th. So get it. It'd be fantastic. If you did, I would appreciate it. So it's got all of the techniques, equipment, all the things that you're going to need for these techniques. There's a ton of recipes, which is the most fun part with working on all of these recipes. But because of the way that I am, to do the book, it was very important to me to research the history of each one of these preservation methods, right? So how did it evolve? When was the first time that we can find something in history being pickled or milk being cultured? When can we find that? And how has that technique evolved and changed? Or in some cases, not even changed much at all the way up to how it is today that we utilize those techniques. And that, for me, because, I'm a story history nerd, that was a good time for me. But it's a wealth of information in this little book. So, yeah, there's the history, the techniques, the methods, the equipment, and recipes, for sure. So it was a cool little book to work on. I'm excited to get it out into the world.
Can't get enough recipes.
Yeah. And it's kind of something new for me in my books to do something like that. Now, the Artisan Herbalist has a lot of recipes for medicinals, making salves and lotions and tinctures and teas and that sort of stuff. But this one is just the Heritage Pantries. It's from a culinary point of view. So it's my first book with culinary recipes in it. So it was cool to kind of branch out and do something new.
And your book, The Artisan Herbalist, that is the book that I use for my references for all my tinctures.
Oh, so awesome.
I got started in 6th grade a little bit. And then Becca picked your book up for me 2 years ago at the seed swap. And that's when I really took off and started doing it again. And if you have been like hesitant or thinking about doing it, grab that book. It's wonderful. Very, very well detailed on how to do those things. And
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Most of your medicine comes from herbs and vegetables, fruits.
Oh, absolutely.
For those that don't know that, you go right to the source. Don't go to all this other crap that's out there. Right off from your garden. What scares me about medicine today is all the glyphosate that's in our vegetables and going to medicines. You know what I'm trying to say? So you're using glyphosate and you're using herbs and stuff. Now that's going to medicine. Because it's going to beer, wine, soda. 90% of people have glyphosate in their bodies. Is that happening to our medicine too?
I'm gonna say I very minimize. I don't talk about my medical background, but I'm gonna say that some of the things that we put in our bodies from pharmaceutical companies are known heavy metals. There's
Right.
heavy metals in some of those things. And, that is not good for our bodies.
Well, kind of to come back to what we were saying early in this conversation is there's a lot of wild people out there doing some wild stuff, for sure. It's and I think that again brings us back to the point of how important it is to try to learn about these things and to focus on doing better, making better choices for ourselves and for our families. Whether it's our food or our medicine or whatever it might be. As we just learn about the world around us and just try to make better choices. I'd like to believe that all those baby steps add up to be a significant change someday.
So I'm just going to check it out, your smallhousefarm.com page.
Yeah.
You can shop here, guys. So if you go right here, right to shop, and you could buy seeds here, your tinctures, books, you could buy everything right here. Online education. So just click on that. And for example, let's go to seed collection.
Yeah. And all the seeds that we offer, we grow and process right here on our farm. So we know all of them.
So everything from beans to eggplant to peppers, lettuce, squash, tomatoes, and there's your books. But I always like eating tomatoes. Let's go to tomatoes. Let's click on that.
Can't go wrong with the tomatoes. Yeah, for sure.
So you got the Italian collection, tomatoes lover collection. I mean, this is where you want to buy your seeds. I mean, and you have tomato varieties that are not in some books.
And you want to buy your seeds from a foodie. You saw him tasting those tomatoes. He's not going to tell you they're good if they're not, because he's already tasted them right in front of you.
Absolutely. You're right. We grow every single one of them. We eat all of them. These are varieties that we love. So that's why we share the seeds, Go ahead.
Bevin, I can tell you right off the bat, I have never heard of Puerto Cortez, Palooka Pink. Never heard of them before.
Oh yeah, we got some different ones for sure. And it's just I'm just lucky, by traveling around and meeting other seed savers and gardeners and stuff that I folks share these different varieties with me, and it's really nice. The Pacala Pink, I got in Appleton, Wisconsin, from a family, the Pacala family, that had been growing that for generations. And I did a workshop at a farm up there, and they shared some of those seeds with me. And they're these adorable little pink tomatoes. They're so sweet and succulent, and they just produce and produce and produce. They were fantastic. I couldn't even believe it, So that was a good one. Yeah, they're all good ones. There's the Old Carolina tomato. That's the Nell Bryson tomato from the story right there. That's it.
Oh.
That big whopper.
I need to grow that one.
It's awesome.
Well,
it's one of my favorite. I've been growing it for years now, and I try to do new stuff. I like to mix up, try new things, offer different varieties for folks, But that's one that I grow every single year. Every year I'll grow it. It's so good.
Well, you hooked me in with a story because I am a huge fan of the Appalachian Trail and Smoky Mountains National Park, and so now I have to have it because I'm a
any excuse you need, right?
Well, okay, let me be honest with you. I am not a seed hoarder, but I do have my own personal seed bank.
Well, yeah, and it's important that we should, and I agree with that, and there is like a difference between those two things. To having a reasonable and useful seed bank, so you're prepared, versus hoarding. They're certainly different things. There's a difference.
I will share my seed bank with anybody that wants to, but I definitely have to have more varieties, always more varieties.
If you guys have acid problems, reflux, you choose more of a yellow tomato. That
one right there, Aunt Eula's Rock House Yellows. I got that from my buddy Paul. Paul Douglas, avid seed saver. You'll find him at almost any seed swap you go to. It's his Aunt Eula's tomato. He's from Tennessee. He shared it with me at a seed swap, maybe in Indiana was the first time he gave it to me. And what a tomato it is. Look at it. It's gorgeous, beautiful, delicious.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You're driving me wild.
The picture looks really meaty. Like it would be a really good paste tomato.
We're good. There's that meat.
Yeah, it is. It's a good meaty tomato, but it's also awesome on a sandwich. You know, it's got good flavor to it. Make a big old one slice is all you need. It covers the whole bread.
Perfect. You feed the family that way.
That's right. That's right. Everybody gets a slice.
Like the Wickershire Project's growing a lot of melons this year. Let's see what he has for melons and squash.
Yeah. Now we have less of those. Oh, look, that's all that's in stock right now. So, you know, because of the way that those plants are pollinated, how they're, you know, insect pollinated in our small farm, it's difficult for me to have a lot of different varieties and ensure that varietal purity. So we'll typically grow one of each of the 3 main species of squash that won't cross-pollinate with each other. So at most, I'll have 3 squash each year. But that cuts down on the work for me. I don't have to do any hand pollination, but I still have some good diversity. But yeah, beans, look at all these beans. Look at that purple bean right there.
Ukrainian pole. So it's a pole bean. If you have limited space, grow vertically.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good one. We got that from a seed saver down in Ohio. And it was brought here from the Ukraine back in the 1990s. And it's a really nice one. Now, traditionally, they would eat it as a dry bean, like making soups and that sort of thing with it. But I've even eaten it as a green bean when they're young and tender. It's wonderful. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bean. Look at that. Wow. And guys, if try to get an eggplant and change your variety, not just the black magic eggplant or anything like that. Try to change it up. Try something new to grow. Rattlesnake eggplant, Chinese string. I never heard of Chinese string.
Oh my gosh, as you can see in the picture, they're not very big around, but they're super long. I've had some of them over 3 feet long. Wow. I just put them right on the grill hole, grill them up. They're awesome.
I like the orange eggplant. I think these taste I think they taste different than the regular black eggplants. I think this is awesome eggplant, the orange eggplant.
I agree. I absolutely love them. They really actually kind of turned me around for eggplants. I was never an eggplant guy until I had one of those orange ones. And it really changed my point of view on eggplants altogether. But what's really nice about it is the orange eggplant was domesticated in Africa. It's Solanum aethiopicum is the species. Whereas the purple eggplants that we're familiar with are of Asian descent. It's Solanum melangina. So they're different species. So they don't cross-pollinate. So I could grow a purple eggplant and I could grow this orange eggplant, and being different species, they don't cross. So that's how I'm able to have those different varieties without any extra work on my part.
I'm on the pepper section right now, and I know right first thing tomorrow morning I'm going to be buying this one.
There's Calabrian right there. Look at that beauty.
Kaylin Straight in the chat said it. Joe wants that. Yo, yes, I do.
There it is.
Let's see. Oh, Sugar Rush Peach. I love Sugar Rush Peach.
From Chris Fowler in Wales developed that one.
What a great guy he is, too.
Yeah,
he's a very interesting character.
He's a character, that is for sure. He's a very cool guy, but he sure knows his peppers.
Oh, he sure knows them. He told me some stories I can't elaborate here, but I'll tell you off the air.
Right.
So is that one a paprika?
Yeah, yup, the sheep nose. Yup, it's for making paprika. Okay. Absolutely right.
I am on the search because for me it's all about the food preservation going into spices. So I am on the search to do a good batch and have my own paprika.
Yeah, that's a good one for it. You know, the only drawback that I've had to it is just simply the size of it. But they produce well. So if you're patient, you'll get a lot of them, which makes up for the size of it. But I've made paprika just with bell peppers, and that works out pretty good too. Just like a straight up, sweet bell pepper. But these ones, that's specifically what they're bred for, is making paprika.
Can you talk a little bit about the health benefits of chia seeds?
Well, I don't even eat a lot of chia seeds, to be honest with you. I am not a fan of the texture of chia seed. It is not my jam. If I'm going to go with something gelatinous like that, maybe like some basil seeds if I had to, but not really something that I eat a lot of, to be honest with you.
It's got that same gelatinous mucus-like texture as okra.
Yes, it does. But I can eat okra all day long. You know what I mean? all day
Well,
long.
maybe
I'll
you
eat
should
it.
put your chia seeds in your tomato soup, and then it would be.
Put it in my gumbo, right?
Yeah, everything I see is putting chia seeds in my oatmeal, and it's like, no.
I don't even really eat oatmeal for the same reason. It's the texture of it, you know.
So, St. John's wort. Talk a little bit about the benefits of St. John's wort.
Sure. So St. John's wort, most people are probably familiar with St. John's wort as its use as a mood stimulator, as an enhancer. Back in the 90s, it was really popular as a supplement for people that suffered for depression. But when they tested a lot of that stuff, those supplements from the 90s, most of them didn't even have St. John's wort in it to begin with. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of that pseudo type of stuff. One of the problems with ingesting St. John's wort is it does interact if you take some medications. It's not necessarily always safe to ingest if you take in, medicine for depression or blood thinners or whatever it might be. So we typically offer it for topical application. And St. John's wort for topical application, whether it be in a tincture or a salve, is fantastic. Number one, it's fantastic on a sunburn. It's great for healing a sunburn, helping with the pain from the sunburn, kitchen burns as well. But we often use it for sunburn issues, right? Combining it with aloe or something like that's really nice. It's also really nice for nerve pain. It's a nervine. So people that suffer from nerve issues, fibromyalgia, that sort of stuff, topical application of St. John's wort is exactly what they need. So we offer it in small salves, like 1 ounce jobs. We also do even bigger 4 ounce bottles. And those seem to be pretty popular with the folks that are in pain. You want to be able to get it once and have it for a while. And it's pretty potent stuff. We use mostly the flowering tops. Like in the photo there, I got a handful of just the flowers. But I'll use some of the leaf as well. I'll gather most of the flowering tops and infuse them in oil. It's hypericin is the chemical specifically that we're extracting, and it turns the oil bright red. It's gorgeous. It's such a pretty color. Really, it'll even stain your fingers red while you're picking it. But and it grows wild all over, right out here. It's all over the place. So
right now we have one last question. If anybody has any other questions, please put them in all caps. How do you identify a tomato plant?
Do I identify a tomato plant as it's a tomato plant as opposed to a pepper plant or something? If that's the question, often by aroma. I mean, obviously the shape of the leaves is quite unique, even though like with the tomato plant, sometimes there's like a potato leaf type of tomatoes where the leaf looks more like the leaf from a potato plant. But the aroma, it's distinct. You know what I mean? The smell that you get from the leaf is one of a kind. It's a tomato for sure when you smell it. As far as identifying the varieties, now this is when it can get a little sticky. You know what I mean? Because some things that have happened is sometimes people will take a variety that already has a name and give it a new name to make it seem more unique to try to sell it or something like that. That's especially in the early days of the seed business, that was a big thing that happened a lot. So there's a lot of very similar looking tomatoes with different names. There's a lot of tomatoes that don't necessarily have names or that people don't label their stuff very well. So being able to identify a tomato is very tricky. There's a Facebook group that I'm in. It's called Heirloom Tomato Addicts Anonymous. And they have a bunch of they have like a Peppers Addicts Anonymous or whatever. But the tomato, that's their largest group. And often there's people that'll share a picture of a tomato in there and be like, whoa, what's this? I lost my labels. And 9 times out of 10, nobody will be able to tell you. They'll have some guesses. They might be familiar, similar to this type of variety, but there's so many tomatoes out there anymore. It's pretty much impossible to find out a name from just the physical appearance of a tomato. But if it's delicious, who cares what it's called? Eat it. Save the seeds. Eat it next year too.
So Serena always gives us a joke or some kind of comment at the end of the chat. And usually it's a joke. She goes, what are the slowest and fastest plants? She goes, the creeper and a running vine. So that's her comment of the day.
I love it.
Thank you for that, Serena.
I love her jokes.
Thank you.
But we got to keep them down at the end because it's it'll be a whole thing of jokes the whole time. Well, Bevin, thank you so much for coming on. So 2 weeks, guys, the book's coming out. So go buy it. It's not that expensive. It's not $40 where you buy some other books. It's very economical. They got some seeds there. You guys go buy. So just don't buy the book. Buy some seeds.
I like where your head's at, Joe.
Well, I'm gonna say if I could only buy two things, I would buy your elderflower tincture.
Oh yeah.
And your hemp salve.
I appreciate those. Those are good choices. For sure.
Those are the two that I've tried and I absolutely love. And I wish I'd have bought more.
Well, you've got the link to my website, so you can buy as many as you want.
This is true. Or I could run into you at certain places you are where you have them that I usually see you and I can grab
Absolutely
more.
you could. And for all the folks that may be near where I'm at, if you visit my website, there's a calendar on there that will show you all the events that I'm going to be at. And I do a lot of things outside of Michigan also. I'm all over the place. So you can check out the calendar. Maybe I'm coming to your neighborhood. I'd love to meet you. So come and say hi to me if I am.
Yeah. And there's
Any
one
chance
more
you could be in
thing.
New Jersey area?
There's one more
Any
thing I
chance you-
just read. If you buy all the books and you don't get enough of Bevin and his, because I could listen to him talk all day, but you just did something special. You were just published in a magazine, weren't you, recently?
Oh yeah. You know, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, I used to write all the time. I did for Modern Farmer magazine, Mother Earth News. You know, I'd be like half their issues, and then I kind of took that time off of that to work on these books. And so this is the first magazine I've been in like a year. I'm in the April issue of Homesteading Monthly, and it's an article about herbs that I wrote that's in there. It's a fantastic magazine. It's very well made. They're beautiful. And they're packed full of information. There's some really, really cool stuff in there. There's, in particular, to me, that was special, there's an article from Hank Shaw in the magazine. And Hank Shaw, you might be familiar with. He's a food writer, hunter, gardener, gatherer, cook. I think it was his first book that he's most popular for. And to be in the same magazine as Hank Shaw is a milestone for me, to say the least. So, yeah, it's Homesteading Monthly. I'm sure you can find it online. You could check that out. It's a really nice magazine.
Awesome, Bevin. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'm telling you, go buy several things.
Yes.
You guys, you can do it. You can do it.
I appreciate that. And if
I'm
you guys
sorry.
want to buy several things, that would be totally cool. And if you just want to connect with me on social media, you can follow our YouTube. We have a Patreon that you might really enjoy joining our Patreon. Check out all those things. Let's stay connected. That would be really, really nice to meet some more like-minded folks and keep building this community.
Thank you so much, Bevin. And hope to see you again sometime in a near future, like very soon, at some kind of convention or something. That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome.
And take care. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Bye, everybody.
That was awesome, wasn't it?
He's gone. Where'd he go?
I tell you, I have a really bad cold,
Uh-huh.
and so I'm stuffy and stuff, and I'm like, I want to come out with stuff. I'm like, I just want to like a snort a little bit.
Well, I keep coughing. I kept muting myself because I was coughing.
Sorry about that, guys.
I gotta get these violets into syrup quicker than this.
I need some elderberry.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was
Oh, I think it went really, really well. He is
we had Yeah, he's really down to earth.
How many?
What a great guy. I mean, what he produces, it does its job. You know, by seeds, you're getting true seed. You're buying the oils and stuff. You're getting, and he does all these stuff in markets and stuff too. And they just keep on coming back.
The speakers he's drawing here to Michigan, to this little back roads town. I mean, and the vendors. I mean, there was a guy selling over 300 heirloom varieties of just tomatoes. Like, that's all he does is sell tomatoes. And the guy that just all he did was corn, and he had a whole 6-foot long table of different corns. He's went to every Native American tribe in existence in the US and got their corn and it's just, yeah, it's amazing what he's doing. But.
Yeah, that worked out really good. And I'm sorry if I'm can't talk once in a while. Stuff just doesn't want to. Well, you're all over the place, Tammy. It's all good.
I gotta take it out of the thing. I gotta lean back. My back is killing me. But
yeah, it was a great discussion, and thank you for. I seen Kaylee made a donation. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for all the members. I don't have all the members in front of me. I apologize, but thank you for all the guys, everybody becoming members. It means a lot, and it keeps this channel growing. Thursday. I mean, what a great interview we have for Thursday. You guys are in for a treat. And it's from biochar from A to Z, but how to implement biochar. And yeah, you guys are in for a good one. She, I always want to call her Kelsey, which is terrible. 1 sec, I got to remember. Hold on 1 second. Her name is Kelpie Wilson. I always want to call her Kelsey because I never heard anyone called Kelpie before.
It's an interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. But she just wrote a book, and we're going to promote that. She also watched our interviews with a couple of our interviews. She goes, "Wow, you guys are like the Joe Rogan of gardening." And I'm like, whoa, that's quite the compliment.
That is.
Serena, no, I haven't tried fire cider, but I think I need some now. Thank you guys for getting well. I'm just very stressed. I'm still waiting for results on my son to see what's going on with him. And I'm thinking about, I got to change what I'm doing for a job. And instead of going into New York for a job or something like that to pay my, I don't want to go anywhere near New York City. I don't want to go anywhere close to it. And I need to try to make enough money to pay my mortgage. So I'm thinking about becoming a bus driver, which is, I never thought I would ever say I would become a bus driver. I thought I'd be more of a teacher of some kind of sort in society, but bus drivers make pretty good money. They make around $25 to $30 an hour here. And if I do that, I would have off in the middle of the day. And if I'm off the middle of the day, that means I have more time to garden. So I would wake up I'd be like 6 to 10, go on a bus, 10 to 2, I'm on my own. Then 2 to 7 or something like that, I'll go back on a bus. And then I can still Uber at night and do all that because I only sleep 4 hours a night. So I guess it actually kind of works out. So I need to do something for myself a little bit. And so if I could garden those 4 hours, it beats what I'm doing right now. So that's just something I'm thinking about. I have other opportunities to do other things, I think. But we all got to figure it out. But it's not easy living in Jersey right now. Not easy being 54 years old and trying to find a new profession. So that's what I'm trying to figure it out. And Terry, thank you so much. Terry's been helping me out little ways to sell stitch markers. And so every once in a while she comes, I'm going to buy some stitch markers and I'm going to do for a giveaway. So Terry, thank you so much for doing that. And again, thank you for all. We have some new members today. Thank you guys for doing it and all the past members. It just helps out so much. So we got some good stuff going on with Grow Big TV. And as I said in the broadcast, I mean, I had somebody ask me if I wanted to sell drones. Anybody want to buy a drone for a couple $1,000? Spray stuff on your field? Let me know. Maybe I might take up that deal. I still can't believe this stuff that comes across.
I'd love a drone, but I don't know. The learning curve would be probably too much for me to operate it the way I'd want to.
Oh, thank you guys for the prayers and everything like that. It's very time. I don't know how to even describe it. You know, when your son was going through cancer before, and after that was all, everything was done. I've been totally drained since. Totally drained. Um, Now I just hopefully nothing's up, and hopefully it's nothing. That's all. Hopefully it's all good to go. So that's what's going on with my life. It's just a trying time. Sunday Fun Day will be back this week. We're probably going to have the Vineyard Chicks on because they have something special going on their page. They're in the Christian music top 50 right now.
Yes.
And they want to try to get really up there. So it's very, and voting ends on Sunday night, right after my show, by the way. And so hopefully we get a lot of people to our Sunday Fun Day this week, and hopefully you guys can all support them in some kind of way. Because it'd be pretty cool to have somebody, right there, right in front of our eyes, going through something that's very important to them. They support so many people, we should be supporting them. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And Tammy, thank you so much for coming on last second and doing this.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me.
And Corky, hopefully she feels better. She's been sick on and off every single spring, a lot of early in the spring. She thinks she might have some kind of sleep apnea and other stuff. But what you guys don't understand, when you have sleep apnea, because I have sleep apnea, once you wear that mask, it's a game changer. I can never sleep without that mask again. It's amazing what that mask does. I used to fall asleep in a movie theater. If it got dark, I would fall asleep. Gone.
Yes.
That's how sleep apnea. I would be driving. This is before Uber, by the way. And I would just pass out in the middle of the road like after work. And I'd be like, whoa, what the hell was that? Well, once you get that machine, you get such in a deep sleep that you need less sleep. You don't need as much sleep. I would sleep 9 hours, thinking I'm sleeping 9-10 hours without the mask. You sleep 4 hours with the mask. That's all. It's that beneficial. And you get sick so much if you have sleep apnea, and you don't get sick as often because all that air that pressure's up through your nose, it clears you out. So when you wake up in the morning, there's nothing. You're good. You're good to go. There's no you sneezing your nose, trying to get phlegm, or you don't have those issues at all. So just if you have a husband or your wife that snores a lot, get tested for it. It could be a life changer for you. And plus you'll sleep a lot better. You don't want to go to sleep and you're oh my God, I can't sleep. Shut up already. Right hand Clyde right to your face.
And they say the CPAP extends your life expectancy too. Because without it, you're deoxygenating at night.
Oh, Joe, I cannot do without the mask. And I bought me a new mattress for my birthday. It's awesome. That's the way to go. The only thing with the mask, when you have the mask, it leaks once in a while. So, but once you get situated, like I don't move at all when I have a mask on. If I have my mask off, I'm all over the place in the bed, which is pretty interesting. But when you first start wearing a mask, it can leak because it's not fitted right. But once you get fitted right, again, total life changer. And I'm telling you, if you don't want to hear your spouse snoring, that's the best. It's the best. So I hope to have Bevin on in the near future. I hope you guys learned a lot. The guy's very popular in the gardening world and the herb world. I mean, botanicals, it's where it's at. There's not enough people learning botanicals or know how to use animals.
And seed saving. He is really where it's at with seed saving.
Well, just like you see all the seed saving. I mean, how many set up a school to do that in a town community for seed saving? I mean, wow, that's pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's special. I if I was coaching, I would do that right now. If I was still coaching, because I have to in at the school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would do something like that. I always like doing events. But anytime I could bring people together, it's always a lot of fun. But New Jersey, you need a permit.
Oh,
That's
not so much here.
Awesome. Okay, guys, everyone take care. Stay on for 1 second, Tammy, okay? I hope you guys could see, come to Thursdays live and try to come as early as you can, 8 o'clock. I mean, we still have 52 people here. You guys are amazing. It's just a very important interview, and there's going to be people from all over the world in this chat. You might not see it all here, but you're going to see it on LinkedIn and stuff like that, because biochar is very important in other countries. Very important right now.
Yeah.
Because in the United States, we're very lucky we have what we have. When you have biochar, I mean, who knows when it's going to rain in certain areas? Where you could be dry at 95, 100 degrees. Well, they put that biochar down, all that water gets sucked there and stays there. It's the way to grow food.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Everyone have a good night. God bless.